So you are afraid of something else. We all go a little mad sometimes. You don't know what death is.
Welcome to the madness. We are the Mouths of Madness, your new favorite podcast for horror movie reviews. We're coming to you live tonight via Zoom as the Dungeon of Doom is being disinfected after our little clown cafe chaos mishap. This is our episode 22 on the 1996 Scream. My name is Kevin, and let me introduce you to the other members of Madness. First, we have Dan. Dan, how are you enjoying your spooky season so far?
Guys, I am having a great time. I am looking forward to all of the scary movie content we are going to be covering for the month of October. I am looking forward to all of the streaming services and their horror movie chests that they're going to be dropping on us all October. So I am super stoked for this month and the Halloween season.
Next, we have the mayor of Halloween Town. It's Bearclaw.
It's going to be a great Halloween season. I've got my decorations up already. I'm ready for it now. Like Dan said, all these good movies are all coming on to Shudder and all these other services that we use. There's all kinds of Halloween events. I made a plate of jellied brains the other day out of Jell-O. It came out really good. I got some pretty exotic Jell-O molds. I'm ready for the spooky season.
Wow.
Can't skimp on the brain jelly.
Can't skimp on the brain jelly. I made the outside of the brain pink, and then I made the inside of the brain blue. It was a great Jell-O mold. I'll send you guys some pictures.
Excellent.
That sounds awesome, Bearclaw. And finally, we have the youngest member of Madness, my son Logan. Logan, how's your spooky season going so far?
Oh, it's going pretty good.
Yeah. Are you excited? Wait a minute. Hang on. We got a phone call coming in to Zoom here?
That can happen?
Hang on. Let's answer this. Hello?
Hello?
Who's this?
Who is this?
This is the Mouths of Madness. You called us.
Is this a telemarketer? Like, what's up with this shit?
I want to talk to you for a second.
Oh my god. Let's hang up on them.
I don't even know who this clown is.
You hang up on me and I'll cut you like a fish.
Yeah, you can try it.
That's enough of that shit. I know that there are a lot of other great horror movie podcasts out there, but what separates us from the other ones is that we're going to be giving you the older versus younger generation perspective. Myself, Dan, and Bearclaw are all in our late 30s, while my son Logan is 18. So this is the clash of the generations. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to us on your favorite audio platform and YouTube. If you're enjoying your descent into madness, we really would appreciate it if you would rate us 5 stars and leave us a review. You can find us on Instagram at mouths.of.madness. We have a great YouTube channel at Mouths of Madness, where we have a YouTube exclusive podcast called Straight Jacket Talk, where we just reviewed The Shining. So go check that out now. And finally, email Bearclaw at thepaddedroom@outlook.com and let him know what's your favorite scary movie.
Yeah, what's your favorite scary movie, and what are you doing to get prepared for the Halloween season? So let me know what your costume's going to be. Maybe it's Ghostface. Who knows? Let me know at thepaddedroom@outlook.com.
It's time to embrace the madness and let you all know what we've been up to. Well, for me, like I said, we just reviewed The Shining over on Straight Jacket Talk. So I watched The Shining. It had been a while since I've seen this classic horror movie, and it is great. I definitely recommend watching it and making it part of your Halloween playlist, because Shining, Jack Nicholson, here's Johnny. Come on, these are classics.
Oh, I mean, that is like one of the penultimate horror movies, The Shining. I love that movie, and I love all the weird conspiracies. Like, have you guys ever seen all the weird conspiracies around it? I can't wait to hear your guys' take on it. We're pre the episode coming out, but I can't wait to hear your guys' take on it. And do you guys mention any of the weird conspiracies, like that Room 234, or that it was Stanley Kubrick's secret confession that he shot the moon landing?
Yeah, so we touch on it. We don't go over the conspiracy theories. Yeah, because I think it is. Yeah, I think it's Room 237, the documentary.
Yeah. I mean, that documentary reaches hard, but it's still a good documentary. It's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to like think about maybe some of these conspiracies like being involved in this movie. It makes it, I guess, kind of a bigger mystery in a way.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff with this movie, and Shelley Duvall's actually making her return to horror movies soon. There's a new movie coming out. I guess she was had some hard times there for a while, and but I understand she's making a comeback in a new movie, so that'll be awesome.
Dang. Well, she just passed away, right?
Oh man, Nathan, edit all of that out about Shelley Duvall.
Editor's note. No.
I thought I saw something about that, but
No, she is in a new movie,
Nathan,
though.
can you leave me hanging here?
No, she is in a new movie. Like, that's the thing. She did shoot a movie before she passed away. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She had a brief comeback, Bearclaw.
Okay. Good.
Very brief.
I feel so bad. You guys remember Fairy Tale Theater? That used to be the best.
Oh, man. Oh, God. I love it. Also, I want to give a shout out to the It's Lays podcast because they just did a review on the movie The Craft, also from 1996. So if you want a good companion piece to this episode, go check out It's Lays doing The Craft. That's it for me. How about you, Dan?
I have been checking out the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix.
I was watching that too.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There isn't a lot of new stuff that's covered if you're a WWE fan, but it does a good job of putting it into perspective, the significance of Vince McMahon's impact on the industry. I think the most interesting parts, I would say, and damning portions of the series for me is like his interactions with his family and their involvement in his business. There's some serious like black sheep stuff going on, like with his kids. The other thing is just it's a documentary about wrestling, which is kind of ironic, doing a documentary on an art form that's charm is getting you to believe it's all like to believe a lie.
Right.
And so like it's funny seeing like all these wrestlers like making comments and like they're all working. Some of them are taking it seriously, but like, some of them are like working a story and working an angle.
Right.
Yeah, but
And it's just
Bret Hart, I thought, had a good point there. He's like, I'm an artist, and this is my art. You know what I mean? Like when he was on, because I only saw the first episode of the documentary, but Bret Hart was like, listen, it's not like baseball real, but it's like, you know, this is an art form, and I am an artist, and to that point, I can't argue him.
Yeah.
With him on it.
definitely.
All right, Bearclaw, how about you?
So nothing too dense, but I will say this, and I rewatched this today, and it's a little bit more graphic than I remember it, but the Thriller music video from Michael Jackson.
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
like say what you will about Michael Jackson, but that is still an awesome and all-time great
It's the best
Halloween
music video.
It really gets me into the Halloween spirit, watching him transform into a werewolf and zombies and all that kind of fun stuff. I really love that music video, and that's the last like Halloween thing I consumed. And besides all the horror movies on all the services, like Dan had mentioned, but yeah, that Thriller video was just fantastic.
We just watched a Scary Movie for the first time, and that was pretty good.
I actually fell asleep watching Scream one of the times I was watching Scream and woke up and Scary Movie was the next one on there. And I was like, I don't remember
Same
this
thing.
part of the movie.
This really took a turn.
I love Scary Movie because it brings up Diddy a lot. Like there's so many references to like people who you probably shouldn't be talking about nowadays. I think that's mostly it. Yeah.
It was fun watching Scary Movie again because I hadn't seen it myself in so long. I gotta tell you something. I'm gonna bring this up in a discussion later, but it's almost frame for frame, like a spoof of Scream.
Yeah. Except for that movie theater.
That's actually the beginning of Scream 2. They incorporate a little bit there. So, but it's kind of crazy. Without any further ado, grab a beer, pull up a chair, hold on to your straitjacket tight, and let's dive into the madness. We watch Scream from 1996. It was written by Kevin Williamson, who is best known for being a writer of such TV series as Dawson's Creek and Vampire Diaries. But he also is well known for writing such movies as The Faculty, teaching Mrs. Tingle, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And in fact, he wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer before Scream.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I've seen none of those movies.
It's kind of funny that they bring up like most of that in Scary Movie, like because they also bring up Dawson's Creek with that cameo from what's that guy's name?
James Vanderbeek.
Yeah, and I Know What You Did Last Summer with the old man guy.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to think about.
He was really like the late 90s king of script writing, because those were all movies that were like that late 90s, early 2000s. Horror was starting to make a comeback. Idle Hands was in that era. We got to cover Idle Hands sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Friend of the podcast, Devin Sawa, he was pretty stoked when we talked about Idle Hands to him. It's kind of crazy that at this time, Kevin Williamson, before he wrote Scream, he was house sitting at the time. And he was watching a documentary on Danny Rowling, who was the Gainesville Ripper. And it goes that he was struggling, had only sold one of his scripts. And he kind of came up with the idea for Scream and wrote the script for Scream. But it wasn't called Scream. It was actually called Scary Movie. So I got to ask you guys, like right off the bat here, what name do you like better for the movie? And I know like, okay, Scary Movie was the spoof movie, but like that didn't exist at this time. So let's go to 1994 when he wrote this. Which name do you like better, Scream or Scary Movie?
Scream.
Scream.
Honestly, Scary Movie.
Oh, Bearclaw.
Like in that time, in that place, I think Scary Movie. And just because Scream doesn't really. I mean, Scream's very ambiguous. This movie could be about anything, you know. But like, Scary Movie is kind of like, you know, that term is you. When does anybody say Scream throughout this entire movie?
It is said one time.
Not
It
once.
is said.
Yes.
It is said one time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
I was gonna say because
it's
like
a Scream,
Scary
baby.
Movie is said a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because I like that they do say Scary Movie and Scream in this movie.
They knew what they were doing.
Now,
Yeah,
Scream,
I think Scream's very edgy, but I do think Scary Movie should have had a shot too, though.
yeah, I mean, I think Scary Movie is kind of a cool concept too because it was a very meta movie. But like Scream to me, just I don't know, it hits you right. You know, it's like bam. One word. I like it better now, but maybe that's also because I'm a little biased because like Scary Movie has taken on this spoof concept as well. Now, Scream was directed by Wes Craven. Wes Craven was admittedly in a slump at this time. He hadn't really directed a pretty big movie in a while, and he was actually trying to get away from directing horror movies. And then he was offered Scream. He turned it down, and as the story goes from himself, he was at a convention signing something for a fan, and the fan had told him he lost his edge.
Got a lot of
Oh
balls.
man, talk about throwing down the gauntlet to the creator of Freddy there.
I know, right? So Wes was like, you know what? This kid's right. So he called the Weinsteins back, and he accepted the role.
Ugly
As
that they're
director.
involved in this. Ugh.
Yeah, the Weinsteins are involved. They beat out Oliver Stone to have the rights to make Scream.
Ew.
Ugly, but unfortunately, it's just one of those things.
Now, listen, I don't like the Weinsteins from, you know, obviously their stories of horribleness throughout.
Unavoidable when talking about older movies.
But they did do a
unfortunately.
couple of good things in this movie, for this movie. The first thing is they did change the name to Scream from Scary Movie. The second thing is they got the MPAA to approve this movie to an R rating because the MPAA would not budge and was going to give this an NC-17 rating. And also they released this movie 5 days before Christmas, which was pretty revolutionary for a horror movie to come out right around Christmas.
Oh, that is pretty crazy.
There is a famous story that Harvey Weinstein hated the Ghostface look and mask, and costume, and he actually didn't think it was scary, and he was like pressuring them to change everything, and they convinced Harvey Weinstein to like not look at the dailies and to let them shoot a little bit of the movie and then show him it. And they shot like the first couple of scenes, they showed it to him, and Harvey Weinstein, I guess, called up Wes Craven and was like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Keep going on. You won't have any involvement for me.
Yeah, because of all the great decisions he made with the burning. Like, he shouldn't have even been in the room. Like, oh, he needs to use the garden shears. That'll.
Scream had a budget of between $14 and $15 million. Do you guys know how much it grossed at the box office? Bearclaw, what do you think?
I'm going 1996. I'm going 60 million.
30 million?
I'm going to go 200 million.
I think Dan's the closest, not with Price is Right rules. Scream grossed $173 million.
Wow.
Whoa. Wow. That's big money.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was a big deal.
It was very much a big deal.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too, because the Christmas release actually helped this movie. It didn't do well right away, but word of mouth spread, and it was like, you know, one of those wildfire situations where people just start going in droves. Currently on Rotten Tomatoes, Scream has an 81% critic score and an 80% audience score, so this is certified fresh. Let's get into it. What's our overall thoughts on Scream? Logan, kick us off.
Oh, wow. A lot of pressure.
Well, before Logan kicks us off, I think we're going to have to explain a few things to Logan. Like, what are the devices the people are using in this?
What are you doing with the cellular telephones, huh?
Bearclaw, you forgot. I was born in 2006. I know what other phones are. Pagers.
You were born 12 years after this movie was made. Once upon a time, there was no internet. Whoa. It's like a campfire.
I was entertained. Continue.
And everyone was carrying a picture and recording device all in their pockets. Everybody had to go to telephones and pick up pick up the phone, and there was wireless phones, but you couldn't carry them around with you.
See, that's just dumb.
Why didn't you guys have cell phones? And there was cell phones, but you saw the cell phones they were using in that movie.
They're bad.
I'm amazed they got those to work in rural areas of coverage. Like, keeping in mind that this is supposed to be a very rural place, and like they got those cell phones to work. It's just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Logan. It's funny to me. As soon as I saw a cordless phone in the movie, I thought of you, because I was like,
again, how old do you think I am? I wasn't born yesterday.
Is this your first time seeing Scream, Logan?
No, I've seen it way too many times.
So what's your overall thoughts?
Overall, it's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I don't really like it this time around, because like I already seen it so many times that I've already like known everything. So like kind of like the interactions and everything I already knew about. So it was like different, but still good. And I just love like the actors, the actresses, everything about it, just the atmosphere of it. It's just a great horror movie.
Yeah, definitely. Bearclaw, how about you?
This movie is impossible for me to not be nostalgic about. I cannot have an objective opinion on this movie. I can't. I wish I could. I really wish I could. There's some flaws to it and everything like that, but it's hard for me to see those because I'm so blinded by, nostalgia. This was coming of age for us. This was, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Like, this movie was coming out. I don't remember ever seeing it in theaters, but I mean, it was a big movie. It was talked about a lot. And then everybody in school was, oh, you got to see Scream. And I was upset because my parents wouldn't let me see movies that were like rated R yet. But like, I was just getting there with that. And like, it was just on the cusp of when, we were starting to see, like rated R movies. Whoa. And like, this is one of the first like rated R movies that I saw. I have deep love for this movie just because of all of the mystery of the movie. I'm rewatching it again. The mystery still was there for me on it. It's kind of you see through it almost immediately once you know the real answers to things, but you get over that. You're just seeing all these actors and actresses who, like I was saying before we started the pod, the last time that I saw Neve Campbell was in Twisted Metal. She made kind of a comeback comeback role as like the mayor there in that Peacock show, Twisted Metal. But I haven't seen her for years, and like seeing her when she was, I think she was like what 22 in this movie. I think I read something like that. She was 22, and she was doing big things at this time. And Matthew Willard, his just performance in this was just awesome. I loved his kind of crazy, unsettling energy. Who's Billy there? Billy Loomis, Ulrich. 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 He had a great performance in this. I don't know what else he was in, but this is the only thing I really recognize him. He was fantastic. He played like a weirdo. You could never really get a bead on him and what was going on. Everything in this movie, within reason, takes place in reality. And you know what else? You know what's the biggest thing about this movie? Is it's fun. It's a fun movie. Take itself too seriously. And that allows you to really dive into it. That allows you to see the mystery of it. That allows you to like eat your popcorn and watch a horror movie about like this crazy killer. There's some stuff that doesn't bring great nowadays, or that's a little cringe. Like, this is before school shootings and stuff, so the whole school shutting down and things. Nowadays, that brings a little, but, I mean, the principal getting killed, Winkler there, his part is the principal with the scissors and him putting on the mat. I mean, like all of that, just it all comes together in this wonderful movie that I really enjoy. So I'm sure we'll go into more of it. But like one of my favorite parts of this movie is like when they're stabbing each other, the two killers are stabbing each other, like how sadistic and twisted that is. And one of them's like, "Oh, I'm getting woozy, man. Blood, like
a little woozy here."
It's twisted, and like, but that's what makes this movie so good.
Right.
So that's enough of my ranting and raving. But yeah, we'll see what. Dan, what do you think?
I saw this movie when it came out in theaters. I was just a boy then, but even then, I knew when the credits rolled, I had just watched something special. As a kid, it made me scared, it made me laugh, it kept me guessing, it entertained me, and I was satisfied with how it ended. Everything about it was refreshing and more grounded in a setting that is like closer to reality than like those slashers of the 80s where they all had kind of like this supernatural element that they would use to bring them back over and over and over again. I was actually kind of disappointed when they announced sequels for this movie, because for me, this is like, I think how Bearclaw views Halloween, where like he feels like they did the original movie, a disservice by going through and like having all of these additional sequels roll out, when like the first one is so good and it stands so well on its own, like it doesn't need sequels. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about Scream. This is like the perfect modern horror slasher movie. And like, I feel like everything they did after it didn't really live up to the moment that like when the first one came out. I do remember like there was such a buzz about it and how successful it really took off, and how they took like classic horror tropes. Like they did the Psycho trope where they had Drew Barrymore killed off at the very beginning of the movie, and they marketed it like she was going to be the final girl, and like it just turns everything on its head.
Drew Barrymore was huge then, and they just killed her in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Right. It was so cool.
And like the marketing is almost...
I think it was accidental, but...
The marketing in itself is like part of the storytelling in itself, because it sets up that bait and switch. I really do dig this movie. I think it's a complete movie.
I really like how like all of us have kind of this nostalgia with Scream.
Yeah. I feel bad because I can't be that objective about it,
This for me was one of my first horror movies, and kind of like Dan was saying how he knew it was special when he first saw it. I felt like kind of the same thing, because I had loved Halloween. I had just gotten really into watching Halloween and Shining and some of these other classic horror movies. But like horror, if you think about it at this time, was not in like there was not really horror being talked about. Like obviously Freddy and Jason,
tangential things going on, but it was all like nobody was going at the genre itself. It was kind of like horror adjacent kind of stuff, like horror comedies, horror teen comedies, like
horror really became like a tent pole for camp.
Yes. And if you think about it, right, Freddy technically had his final movie in the early 90s if you don't count the remake. So Freddy was killed off in the 90s. Jason was also killed off in the 90s before Scream in Jason Goes to Hell. And everything after that, and even those movies were not great, let's be honest. Like, they were some of their worst movies. So everything before Scream was just pretty stagnant in horror. It wasn't cool. So we had all these older horror movies that were still talked about. And then you had Scream. And when I saw Scream, it was in Blockbuster. And remember how they used to have the covers, but they would put the movies behind them?
Yep.
And I remember like scanning through and there was none left. Like, they had a million Scream covers with no actual movies behind them. I was going crazy.
I completely forgot about that type of frustration in my life.
Thanks for bringing that back.
You had to know what day the movie was coming out, and how you found that out, through some, Fangoria or something like that, or your local video store guy. He might have had the inside track. You had to ask questions. One of the things I love about this movie, too, is, like, think about the discourse from the 90s. And this goes also back to, like, a lot of, like, Jay and Silent Bob, like the mall rats kind of stuff. But I mean, like, before podcasts about horror movies were around, you just sat around and talked with your friends about, like they do in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, just talked about things, and you came up with like scenarios and rules and like, oh, the rules of horror movies. That's one of the things that really lit the nostalgia up for me in this movie, was kind of like having those conversations. You'd sit and talk with your friends about how, would Wolverine take on Cyclops and who would win, or
Wolverine.
Wolverine. Yeah, clearly. I mean, we all know. But anyways,
no, I mean, what you're saying is really true, and I think the writing of Scream maybe goes into Dan's point too, of like why this is an iconic and maybe shouldn't have been a franchise, because it is something very different. There was New Nightmare that came out, ironically directed by Wes Craven and written by him, that was a meta horror movie. But this movie, like, the writing was all smart, and like you were saying, Bearclaw, it is like kind of talking to your friends and knowing the horror tropes and talking about horror movies like we all did. They put it into this generation. I think Scream, to me, is always the horror movie that maybe saved horror, because horror was not going in a good direction.
No, it was not.
Nope.
And if you think about it, Wes Craven deserves a lot of credit. I know he didn't write this movie, but he directed this movie. He directed Scream and Ghostface and this new franchise, right? And he also did Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street. It's almost like he helped make horror and then he helped save horror.
One would say he is a master of horror.
Ooh. Wait a minute. I'm hearing a phone call coming again. Are you guys hearing that? How can he get in through the Zoom again?
What does this guy want again?
Tell him we do not want any of his magazines.
All right, let's just answer and get him out of here. All right, hello.
You like scary movies?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Who doesn't?
I mean, we're a horror movie podcast. I've had enough of this guy. All right, let's hang up on it.
Yeah, I'm already done with him.
Don't hang up on me.
Oh my goodness. I want to ask something, because we've had a few episodes now where we've touched on what we've called the psycho spot. And especially the last episode we talked in Terrifier, and I kind of cut the conversation short because I want to talk about it in Scream. Because I think Scream is the movie that does the psycho spot, where they have a protagonist who we think is the main protagonist, and then they kill them off and they change the protagonist. To me, Scream does it the best since Psycho. I mean, this opening scene is amazing, and you guys all touched on it, with Drew Barrymore being the quote-unquote star, being killed off in the first 15 minutes of the movie. Now, apparently, too, it was her idea to take on the role of Casey. She actually changed her role because
was she supposed to be the main?
I believe she was. Yeah. Yeah,
she was supposed to be what's her name's character
Sydney.
there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sydney, yeah.
There's rumors that Drew Barrymore did not want to do this movie and was kind of like trying to back out of it a little bit, and taking that like first lead role there of Casey would kind of get her out of the movie without pissing off the Weinsteins. But it works so good, does it not?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Dan, what do you think of the opening here?
I think it's one of the greatest openings in horror cinema, hands down. There's nothing that beats it. It really is like probably the best opening to a horror movie. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of Bearclaw, what do you think?
So here's what I love. Here's the artistry of making like a good mystery, and that's what I think. That's one of the things that I think that separates this movie from the pack. Is so what it's not okay. So the opening scene happens. That's fantastic, great. Then the first thing that happens is Billy Loomis climbing into the window of Neve Campbell's character there, Sidney, right? And he starts talking about horror movies.
The Exorcist was on. Got me thinking of you.
It did?
Yeah. It was edited for TV. You know, all the good stuff was cut out.
So right away, you think, oh, something's up here. It puts you uneasy. It makes you uneasy with Billy Loomis right away. But it doesn't. You're not sure. Or is that just the theme of the movie? Or is that... And it kind of puts you off balance a little bit. But then there's other things that happen that make you go, oh, it's probably not him. Just a good mystery. You're never balanced. You never feel like you got all the information. You always feel off balance. Right. And that's one of the coolest bits of this, I think.
Logan, how about you? What do you think of the opening? Did you know Drew was going to get killed?
Yeah. I mean, it's iconic. It's what really
like
drove me to this movie. I knew the entire opening before I even heard a scream, because like people would talk about it all the time as like the best opening. But you know what's better? Halloween Kills. I'm kidding. Halloween 5.
Oh, that is a good opening.
It is a good opening.
Yeah. Where he's going down the river.
Yeah.
Gets saved by a gypsy.
Listen, I gotta ask, these phone calls, right? I mean, they're kind of scary, are they not? Like, even the phone ring itself is a little scary.
Like, the persistence of them is very scary. He keeps calling back, and then she keeps entertaining it for a while and thinking about it. But then it becomes like, you got to stop now, man. And he's like, oh, I'll gut you, or whatever he says there. And then it becomes like, gets scarier and scarier. And it's like, what's that line where he's like, oh, I just want to see you, or something, or I see you, turn on the porch light so I can see you, or something like that.
He asks for her name, and she goes, why do you want to know my name? And he says, because I want to know who I'm looking at. And she's like, what? And he's like, I mean, who I'm talking to. Like, that is so scary, I think.
Yeah, it's another shit moment for sure.
Yeah, the seriousness of the situation is coming into focus at that point. And then her boyfriend gets gutted.
Yeah, and they go into the game, right? What's your favorite scary movie? He asks the simple question with Halloween, right? Because she says Halloween's her favorite scary movie. And there's a lot of Halloween homages in this, too, which I love as a Halloween fan. They even put some of the Halloween music into the scene where Casey's trying to answer the question about Halloween. It's a very cool thing.
I'm picturing the scene where she gets the question wrong. And she's still crying in like hysterics, where it's like, oh no, Mrs. Voorhees was the killer, and she's still crying, and she's like, but how much cooler would it have been if Jason was the killer?
You want it to be right. You know you want it to be right.
Oh my goodness.
We got to get over that. It's a great killer.
I love how she's like, I've seen the movie 100 times. It's Jason. He's like, and then he gets pissed. And he's like, if you had seen the movie.
Don't lie to me about seeing that. You know they made instant coffee.
She made instant popcorn.
Yeah. Here's one I want to ask, too, about the opening scene. Are both the killers there? We come to find out right at the end there's two killers. Do you think they're both helping out in this scene? Because it seems like Ghostface is everywhere a little bit.
Stu was with me last night, okay?
Yeah, it was.
I think they have to both be there. I think that's one of the coolest parts, too, is like, without supernatural elements, I don't think one person could pull this off. Because somebody's got to be running around. Somebody's got to be... There's a lot, like the to-do list here is definitely like a two-person job.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to drag the boyfriend on there. Somebody's got to throw the chair. Somebody's got to be on the phone. Like, there's definitely, I mean, for high schoolers, amazing coordination, planning, and execution.
And when you find out at the end it is two killers, it kind of like, then it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense, because it seems like Ghostface is almost everywhere sort of deal.
Oh,
Ghostface is the Batman of horror villains.
Yes, it's dark night.
I want to ask what your opinion is on Ghostface. Do you like Ghostface? Logan, do you like Ghostface, or do you think he's a little campy?
He's iconic. Like, that's literally all I can say, because, like, it's not a great costume, but, like, it's creative. It's not, like, a cheap costume that somebody just gets at Party City. Like, it's a cool costume.
That's what I think I like about it, is that it was such a generic. It was like that, because that was, I had that costume as a kid. Like, I have an original pre-Scream Ghostface costume. It was a big costume, you know. It was like, you're really ghost fella. Like, it was a fun costume to be, but it was like one of those things that, like, just like Jason with the hockey mask, like Scream took it and made it iconic. And it was also cool from the point of view of, like, anybody could get a hold of one anywhere, and they even established that in the movie universe. They sell, you know, what Dewey there was talking. He's like, they sell these at every Five and Dime, or from here to you know, Arkansas or whatever, and like, they can get it. So it's like, it's one of those things that's like, it's not traceable. That's kind of one of the creepy things about that costume, is you can put it on, and you can put it on very quickly and take it off very quickly, but you become totally unidentifiable with the exception of like your height when you're wearing that thing. What do you think of it, Dan?
He is the horror icon of the 1990s. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of slasher villains like over the last couple of episodes, and I kind of rolled out like a horror villain iconography checklist, and I think it's holding up pretty good. When you look at Ghostface, he has a distinct look. He has a unique kill, which we have the Drew Barrymore opening sequence. He's got an uncanny nature to him. He terrifies his victims on the phone before killing them. He has a distinct murder weapon, a military-grade combat knife, and he has a distinct theme, Red Right Hand by Nick Cave.
Yes.
Peaky
You know
Blinders.
who else? Yes.
Oi,
Yes.
Tommy, I ordered a Peaky fucking Blinders.
That song also featured in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Red Right Hand. You mentioned the hunting knife, Dan. I thought that's a good point too. The hunting knife was very iconic in this movie. Like, it was really, and it's strange because it wasn't like a huge Bowie knife or anything like that. I mean, it's the kind of knife that fits exactly in this time and place, and what kind of stupid stuff that you could get your hands on. And I really liked how he didn't use a gun or anything like that. It was all about, like, you know, the knife. And I also liked how Ghostface there, regardless of who it was at the time, it was Len all of the time anyways, right?
Lee.
Or Lee. I'm sorry, Lee there. It was Lee the whole time anyways. But like how he could get hit and he could fall down and he'd get hurt. And some of the kills are a little bit more comical. And, you know, he caught a glass bottle when he was trying to go after Rose McGowan there. There was a good hand-to-hand fight. Like, she wasn't going down without a fight. I thought that was neat too.
Yeah, just took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say, like, there is like a lot of physicality involved in like the chase scenes. Like, and to me, like, it really builds to the suspense of will they or won't they get away from Ghostface. And yeah, like he's again, like, going back to the 80s and 90s slasher comparison, like, he's human. He over pursues, he stumbles, he gets off balanced, he can be harmed and tripped. He can be tripped up by like debris getting thrown at him, and like he fails. He fails at making his mark. Like, and I think it's just like it captures a desperate urgency that really helps pour on the suspense throughout like the entire movie. Ghostface drives this movie. To answer your question, he's fucking awesome.
He fails the first time he goes after Sidney. I thought that was cool. Like,
he fails a couple of times.
What do you guys think about Sidney as a final girl?
She's like kind of the everyday type of girl, right? You know, she's just a normal girl.
I got a question for you guys. Do you think that Neve Campbell does the Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode final girl justice? I think she's like the closest thing to like a Jamie Lee Curtis that we've had in a while.
Yeah, kind
I think
of.
she definitely does.
She's her own final girl. She's the closest thing to like a Laurie Strode, but she's kind of like in a different way. Like she's not the nerd or like the awkward girl. She's kind of just like everyday girl.
For me, it's like they have similar characteristics, and I think to your point, yeah, like they have different circumstances.
Yeah.
I think they're both resourceful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sydney grabbed the piano and threw it at Ghostface.
I think that was a Scary Movie, I believe.
Might be the same thing.
Tomato, tomato.
Isn't Scary Movie Scream?
I just thought she was an awesome final girl. She wasn't just going to sit helpless. And truly, I don't think this movie showed women in particularly a negative light. I mean, a lot of them effectively fought back.
Right.
Did not go quietly into that dark night. You know, they fought back and didn't play very passive roles. So I really thought that this was a very cool movie from that aspect of it. And Sidney was definitely a badass throughout this movie. So it was really cool. I thought she was an excellent final girl, and especially the way she kind of put things together. And then, you know, hey, who did you call from the jail? And that kind of moment of just like, she's figured it out.
Yeah. I feel like Tatum didn't get that much. She didn't fight back, really.
She did a little bit, like
Which
Bearclaw
one
was
Tatum?
saying. Rose McGowan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She did throw beer bottles at Ghostface.
She hit him in the dick.
She did.
And then he got up, like, quickly.
He no-sold the shit out of that.
I know. I would have been out.
Going back to Ghostface for a second, there's something I was talking to a family friend about Scream, and he loves Scream. It's his favorite horror movie. And he pointed something out. It's almost like when these everyday people put on the Ghostface costume, there almost becomes something supernatural with them a little bit. Like, yes, they're being hit and whatever, but it's like they almost take this Ghostface presence over with them, you know?
We don't see it very much in the first one, but I think later on in the franchise, we see it a lot more. Like, where in, like, the newer ones with, she becomes Ghostface. And it's, like, very cool to see, like, the Billy Loomis kind of take over.
I haven't seen any of the other movies. This is the only Scream I've seen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Thanks, Logan.
F them kids.
I gotta agree with Logan. In like later in the movies, there seems to be like an ungodly amount of punishment inflicted on Ghostface. Like I think there was in one of them, like he gets walloped with like a cast iron skillet or something. And I'm like, how the fuck are you up after that?
You're not getting up after that.
Yeah, he survives like
There ain't no
car
going back.
crashes. There ain't no coming back. Yeah, I mean,
You love that movie.
it's so cool, I think, to look at it that way. And what's awesome, too, is the Ghostface costume was kind of found by mistake on this movie. A location scout found the Ghostface mask, and Wes Craven loved it and wanted to use it. And they couldn't find who owned it to get the rights. So K&B tried to make a mold of the Ghostface mask, and Wes Craven was not happy with the molds. He was like, oh, they're a little bit different than this mask. So they still hadn't hunted down who owned the mask, and Wes Craven decided to use it without their permission because he loved the mask. And then lo and behold, they found out that Fun World owned this mask from the Northeast. They contacted him, and
a man named Cochran owned the mask.
that would have been cool. But listen to this. All Fun World wanted was $100 and credit.
What?
$100.
Some guy in a warehouse, half asleep, woke up, picked up the phone. Yeah, sure, whatever. Horror movie. Okay,
$100.
fine.
Well,
Give me
you know,
$100, pack of cigs, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah,
You know-
whatever, Wes Craven, and I'm Drew Barrymore. Send me $100 and give me some credit.
you know what's messed up though? Fun World actually didn't really own the rights either to the mask, because what they would do is they would do knockoffs of original masks, and this was called the Wailer from a artist called Lauren Githels, who designed this mask as a kit you would put your bed sheet and sew it to, so you would become a ghost. Fun World actually kind of stole that design and made it to this Ghostface mask. So it's funny how like Bearclaw had touched on the other episode, the Friday the 13th episode, on like, you know, making something from something else, borrowing things, and now it's become Ghostface.
Is that really borrowing? That's just stealing. They're like Walt Disney out here.
Ooh.
Hey, I don't want any issues from Disney.
Now, if you think about it, this Ghostface costume is one of the most popular costumes out there.
I mean, it's a good costume, like I said, but that mask is not comfortable. I don't know if you guys have ever worn it, but I remember I was Ghostface. Like I said, before Scream, I was Ghostface, and it was not a comfortable mask.
I was sweating.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys, what's your thoughts on the mystery element in this movie? And when you rewatch it now, knowing that Billy and Stu are the killers, can you pick up on that they are the killers throughout this movie? Logan's nodding yes.
Yeah. Because there's one scene that like really makes it obvious where Stu is saying to who's that other kid there?
Randy,
and he goes,
I didn't kill anybody. Nobody said you did.
no one that said you did. And he just looks at him menacingly, and I'm like, oh shit, they're the killers. Like, I called that out of the blue because I'm a Scooby-Doo watcher. I know this stuff. It's very Scooby-Doo-esque, and I love it.
I thought the mystery was far better than it had any right to be for this movie. And all of the red herrings that they threw out there that like throw you kind of off the trail. To be honest with you, even watching it this time, I was like, I always kind of suspected Billy, but I never saw Matthew Willard's character coming. I always thought Matthew Willard's character was just like general guy involved in things. And like,
He was
he was the
creepy.
one who would like, have some tact. I wasn't sure who else was involved, but I knew two things. It wasn't her father, and I didn't think it was the Kennedy guy. What's his name there?
Randy.
Jamie Kennedy. I didn't think it was Randy's character either. I thought it possibly could be. But like rewatching it now, obviously knowing who they are, I'm able to spot the red herrings even more clearly. But if I had just seen this movie for the first time, I wouldn't have been able to guess, because I would have been like, it's too obvious that it's Billy Loomis. But there's got to be some type of twist. And like when they fake stab Billy Loomis then he's got just corn syrup on him or whatever.
Corn syrup. Same stuff they use for pig's blood in Carrie.
That's also like a real it's not Billy Loomis.
Right.
Like if you're watching the movie for the first time, it's like, oh shit, that's not Billy Loomis.
I think the one thing that everyone touches on, but really it's one of like the first times or first instances I think a slasher has done this, but like there's two killers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to your guys' point, like you're thinking about a primary suspect the entire time, and then like they turn the whole dynamic on its head and they introduce a second killer into it, and that it was a duo like that planned all of it. And I think that's such a cool like different dynamic to the whole whodunit trope. I'm a huge fan of whodunits. I will watch a whodunit any day, anytime. Like, I love those types of stories. So for me, like, I really enjoyed that element to it. And I think it helped so much with respects of keeping like the suspense going. And you don't even realize like half the time that there really isn't a big body count in this movie.
Right.
Because you're so wrapped, and you don't even realize it because you're so wrapped up in the story. You're wrapped up in the whodunit. There's the character development in this movie is so good. Like
Right.
the kills kind of are a secondary feature in a genre where the kills are usually front and center.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And how about like Ghostface just popping up everywhere? Like regardless of whether it's actually the killers or whether it's kids trying to prank, because like they really make the high schoolers seem like heartless degenerate for most of the time.
I love that.
For fuck's sake, they left a party to go watch their principal get pulled off the flagpole.
Oh yeah. This definitely did not have a good impression of the youth of America at the time.
Maybe the principal wasn't out of line when he was like expelling those kids.
2 of your fellow students just savagely murdered. And this is the way that you show your compassion and sensitivity, huh? Let me show you something. You're both expelled. Get out.
No, he wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
He was a great
Fuck them
principal.
kids.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks that Henry Winkler got it.
The Fonz.
Yeah. I mean,
Poor Henry.
I think Dan said it great too, is like this movie, what's so good is it's built on the actual story and the characters. And I think they know, like Bearclaw was saying, that Billy Loomis, he's standing out like a sore thumb right from the beginning, right? Talking about sneaking in the window, Johnny Depp style there, and talking about scary movies and being creepy and kind of pressuring his girlfriend a little bit. Like, we're not meant to like this character.
Can we also mention the character's name is Billy Loomis?
Loomis, yeah.
Billy from Black Christmas and Dr. Loomis from Halloween. Like, tell me how this movie is not inspired by both of those films and have a name like Billy Loomis in it as like a main character.
Maybe Billy's inspired by Halloween 5.
Oh.
Cookie Woman.
But what we talked about in the Black Christmas episode, in our episode 3, Black Christmas, is Scream also takes the telephone calls and makes it something else, you know, like Billy in Black Christmas, he had very descriptive telephone calls.
Pretty big cunt. I make it pretty big.
And,
very descriptive.
Yeah, and Ghostface, he's kind of more eloquent on the phone until he gets pissed, but I like that element too of taking the phone call thing. And I know also it's from When a Stranger Calls, it's heavily influenced by as well. Yeah, I mean, Billy, I think, is that one character that all the audience, I think, is like, this guy's the killer. And like Bearclaw said, when he gets stabbed, we're like, oh my God, we're wrong. Right?
Yeah.
It takes the wind right out. It takes the oxygen right out of the room. Well, who is it then? What's going on? And can we also talk about Courteney Cox? I mean, rest in peace, but she is fantastic in this movie. And her and Dewey, and they're kind of like side.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Did I miss
You guys didn't know that? Yeah, she's no longer with us.
What?
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 When did this happen?
Not too long ago. Let's just double check that my thing here.
I got her still very much alive. According to my Google, she's
Are
very
you
much
thinking about
alive.
Chandler?
Maybe I am thinking about Chan. I thought she had passed recently.
Nope.
Never mind. I was wrong. Well, she didn't.
Cut that.
Shelley Duvall dead. Courteney Cox, not so much.
So apparently, I am totally unreliable for celebrity knowledge. So don't listen to me. At all.
Oh my God.
Don't worry. I've had a couple of flubs myself.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to talk about Courteney Cox's character, Gale Weathers, and Dewey, because these are great kind of side characters, are they not? In their chemistry that's going? Logan, you don't think? No?
Dewey in the first movie is as pointless as a broken pencil.
What? You don't like Dewey?
You don't like
Logan,
Dewey? Dewey's the best.
Really quick, who is better, Kevin the cameraman or Dewey?
Kevin.
I think his name's
Fucking
Kenny.
right, he is. Kenny, you're right. It's Kenny.
They're both
Kenny the
really not the
Character
best.
actor in a lot of movies. That guy's in all kinds of movies.
I was gonna say you guys aren't gonna want to have like a cameraman like in your like Survivor squad in the event that like you don't make it out. You're gonna need somebody to have like found footage material and like somebody knows you went missing.
I want Randy in my Survivor group.
In the Hall of Slain?
Yeah.
Slain because he's dead. Unfortunately,
He's alive in this movie.
in this movie.
Is he also dead in real life?
No, we
No.
met him. Jamie Kennedy.
Oh, not Jamie Kennedy. I thought we were talking about the cameraman still. Sorry, I was hung up on Courteney Cox because I sincerely thought, but no, alas. Well, I'm glad you. I don't want to be negative.
I like David Arquette, but this first movie, him and Gale just are great characters, but they don't do anything in this movie. Gale does kill Billy Loomis, but
first, she's great for an exposition dump of Sidney and what happened with her mom.
Your mother's murder was last year's hottest court case. Somebody was going to write a book about it.
Right, and it had to be you with all your lies and bullshit theories.
And the whole Cotton side story. So she's necessary for that. establishing that. She's also necessary for she's kind of the thread of a lot of things, like bringing everything together. She's kind of a discussion about the media, which was very intrusive at this time. Instead of being intrusive, now they just make it up, but like they're very intrusive at this time. And then, it's just one of those things where it's like she's kind of a thread of everything that ties everything together. She also helps establish the character of Dewey a little bit. And Dewey, I like the character of Dewey. He's a competent police officer, arguably a competent police officer, but like he's a competent police officer, but there's a feeling of safety when Dewey is around. And that's important because it makes it all the scarier when he's not around or distracted, like when he's trying to get with Gale instead of watching the house and then all the murders take place. So like I find Dewey and Gale to be very essential characters in this movie. For moving the pieces
Who do you like
around,
better, Dewey or Doofy?
I mean, Doofy was kind of cruel. I mean, that was mean. I like David Arquette a great deal. So you guys have met David Arquette. I haven't even met David Arquette.
Yeah.
Good dude.
He's our world champion.
There you go.
Acknowledge him.
But also with Gale, what I think is interesting about this movie and it being, God, almost 30 years old now, is the true crime element that really is like present in the 1995-96 Scream, and like how much that is so popular today in like podcasting, and like true crime is like a thing. Like it's just like how some things change, some things stay the same, and how like true crime was still very much like a thing back then that people were obsessed with. And like I think the movie does a good job using Gale Weathers as kind of like the grifter media type preying on victims of violent crime to raise to some sort of fame and notoriety.
I thought too, like what they're both good together as is these characters that aren't being taken seriously at their jobs, and both of them want respect and want to make a change in their respective professions, so they almost come together to like support each other in that. And
that's a good thought.
It's like this world is like, theirs that they're trying to really take on and make change, and like they don't have the support from their kind of friends and family. I don't even know if Gale has friends, but no,
it doesn't seem like the way that she talks to the cameraman there. It really doesn't seem like she has a lot of close buddies.
She's like, move your fat ass.
When I say hurry, please interpret that as move your fat tub of lard ass now!
Please move your fat ass. Hey, can I bring up something here outside of Gale? One of the things that bothered me to no end was Jamie Kennedy's lines when he's talking about the rules of horror movies.
Jesus Christ, you don't know the rules?
Have an aneurysm, why don't you?
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Right, and he's talking about those. Did you guys find those to be accurate? Because one of the first things that he said when he was talking about like Jamie Lee Curtis as like a final girl, and Halloween was like a big part. They're watching Halloween, the movie, as they're doing this, and they're like, the final girl has to be a virgin. She can't have done anything wrong. She can't have done any drugs or anything like that. We explicitly see in Halloween the final girl breaking most of that. I mean, I don't. Her status as a virgin is unclear in Halloween, but is unclear. Judging by her group of friends, probably not. And then you also see her. She's going around smoking weed in a car with the sheriff's daughter. I guess this goes back to some of the points that some people have raised about Final Girls. There's like this framework out there that doesn't really seem to fit the framework of it, and this movie kind of perpetuates that. I mean, it's harmless and I'm getting real into it here, but it's just one of those things that kind of struck me as I was watching this movie this time, having a lot more horror experience than I had in the past and being like, that's not true.
I think they're just like the common trope ideas.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is in this movie, Scream, they don't really apply at all.
Oh, right.
So it's almost like they had set up these rules to be like, for the audience to be like, yeah, you know what? This guy's right. And then like, we're watching this movie take place and they're breaking all these rules.
Yeah, it's a declaration of be like, this is what you are accustomed to, and we're laying it out to you bare.
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to eviscerate it, and you're going to fucking like it.
How about you, Logan? Did you like the rules that Randy laid out?
I mean, they were okay. I don't know. Like, they were just common rules. I mean, they didn't really make any sense, but they were drunk, so, like...
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. I love Matthew Lillard. He's so good.
I also liked a little bit later in that scene where Jamie Kennedy Randy was left on the couch by himself, and he's watching Halloween, and he's yelling, Jamie, Jamie, behind you. And Ghostface is behind him, and his name is Jamie. It was a very meta moment.
Logan, how do you feel as a Scooby-Doo fan that Shaggy is both the killer in Scream and Shaggy?
Like Zoink Scoob! I think Matthew Lillard is awesome, and he is in my Hall of Slain. I think one question I did want to ask is Scream like the last franchise standing? Like, there's no other franchise really that's like as long as this has been and still here.
That's a good point. Like the original storyline thread of a franchise.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
You might be onto something there, Logan, because I don't think there's anything unless they do a revival
Terrifier.
or they finally get to the Nightmare on Elm Street on Broadway. There's not really.
Hello, I am Freddy, and you are my daughter.
Freddy Goes to New York.
Freddy Goes to New York. Until we get that, until Julie Taymor starts answering my phone calls.
Oh,
Yeah, man, I think you're right. I can't really think of any like original story because like obviously Halloween came back, right? But it's
over.
Oh yeah, Halloween. Yeah, they got you there with that one, Logan. Halloween.
But you're right. Halloween's over, though, technically, like Logan said, because Halloween ends. Scream is still going on.
Why didn't they have some type of successor character? That still bothers me about Halloween ends.
We'll talk about it another time.
Farted out of it. Like,
We got to cover Halloween Ends again.
I think you're right. I think you're onto something. Scream seems to be still going, which is awesome. I want to ask about the ending, because Bearclaw had touched upon it at the beginning of what he was talking about, what makes Scream awesome, and he said the ending with the two killers and stabbing each other. I mean, is this not one of the best reveals in horror?
It is the best.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I got one that I think kind of trumps it, but I'm not gonna say what that is because we're probably gonna be covering it at some point.
Say it.
Oh, I mean, like just them being like, oh well, we're gonna set this whole thing up, and there's gonna be a sequel, guys.
We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
They were gonna set up a sequel, like whole sequel set of murders, but they were like, we have to make it look real, and then like stabbing each other, but then like being too aggressive and even like stabbing each other. It just goes to show you what kind of like psychopaths that both of these people are, and it's just it's so visceral and like, oh, I'm feeling woozy, man. Like it's like the reality of the situation is finally creeping into the killers as well, because like they're like, wow, this stabbing actually kind of hurts, which to a real psychopath they probably would have never processed that because there's no empathy whatsoever, and like now all of a sudden it's like, this stabbing kind of hurts. Like it was a very dark, sadistic kind of moment, but it was very like. It was very, very cathartic, and the ending of the movie was very cathartic, where she just shoots him right in the head, and like, just when she's using the voice changer, and Sidney's using the voice changer, and she's yelling at them and calling them and telling them the police is on the way, and
we're gonna play a little game. It's called
Guess who just called the police and reported you? Sorry, motherfucking ass!
They're having that like, oh shit, like this is all like our careful plans have all fallen terribly apart, and like it's just such a cool ending to a horror movie that is so. I felt extremely satisfied at the end of this movie. But I don't know. I think you could see that as a good thing or a bad thing. You know, you could see it as being fulfilled. You could also see it as there's no like cliffhangers or anything. But they made like 4 sequels, so there must have been something there to chew on.
Yeah, because I mean, the idea is anybody could wear that Ghostface costume. So
kind of like Batman.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know where they went after this, but in the movie franchise, Willard didn't come back. Ulrich can't come back because he caught one to the forehead. But I mean, like,
maybe they will.
Maybe you'll have to check it out. I know because what's his name? Matthew Lillard gets the TV through his face. That's a brutal way.
Yeah, he does die, and that's a cathode ray TV. That thing's gonna mess you up, man.
Does he die?
Heavy.
Logan, what did you think of the ending there with the reveal?
It was good. It was great way to like reveal the entire like plot, kind of like, and obviously I don't like the point of like exposition on exposition, but like other than that, it was a great reveal.
Dan, did you like them kind of bringing Sidney's mom killing into the end too, like as this full circle thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it gives a full motive to why Billy decided to go down this dark path of revenge and murder. I love the ending as well. I like the conclusive ending. Again, I kind of mentioned it earlier that like I feel like this is like a complete movie. It didn't really need additional movies. I feel like the ending was perfect closure for like the entire story in itself. I said I like that there's two killers instead of one. And yeah, like the fact that like they're so crazy committed to their plan that they're willing to like stab each other to make it look like they were victims and like, you know, falsify the murders on I think it was the dad was the plan, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I mean, it all made sense and they wrapped it up neatly. That makes me happy.
Right. I agree. It's funny because on this rewatch too, I picked up on the idea that they were going to blame everything on the dad, and including when Billy first goes into Sidney's room. I actually think that's when they plan to kidnap the dad right from there. I actually think part of Billy being with Sidney was him distracting her so Stu could kidnap dad.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I just thought that made sense because then they tie him up and they have him kind of go forward with their plan a little bit.
You know what would be a cool idea is if they remade this movie, but they made it from the vantage point of the other killer.
Oh,
like kind of like to your point, like that could have been a scene where like they kidnapped the dad. That could be like part of it.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like all the other actions that person is doing while we're focused on what's actually on screen kind of thing. It's kind of like the same movie, just from a different vantage point.
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. I think we're on to hook, line, and stinker. Our hook is our favorite kill of the movie. Our line is our favorite line or quote for the movie. And our stinker is something funny, weird, or awful that happens during the movie that makes it either better or worse. For me, my hook is going to be the beginning with Casey getting killed. I just think that whole opening scene is iconic. But I think it's creepy as hell that she's still on the phone as her mom picks up the phone to try to call 911.
Casey, baby.
And Casey's like on the other line.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty brutal. And then her mom goes outside and she's hanging from the tree. I just thought that was a pretty brutal death. And actually, like, even though, like Dan was saying, there's not many deaths in this, they're pretty brutal from what I I didn't think it was like this graphic. But some of them were pretty brutal.
They were able to get it in or get it, R rating instead of like something worse.
My line is kind of what we touched on before when Ghostface calls and she says, "Why do you want to know my name?"
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
He said, "I want to know who I'm talking to." I just thought that was creepy as hell.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely was.
Yeah. And I got to go with the iconic line, "What's your favorite scary movie?" from Ghostface.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Because everyone says it. That's kind of my thing. And my stinker is when Billy throws the phone at Stu at the end and he ad-libbed this line. And he goes,
"Fucking hit me with the phone, Dick!"
That was one of my laugh out loud moments of the movie. How about you, Dan?
Well, Kevin, you and I have very similar hooks and lines. I also did Casey Becker's death. It's brutal, it's suspenseful, it's heartbreaking from the perspective of the parents finding their daughter and her boyfriend brutally murdered in their home. It's the exact opposite of what the previous two movies we covered do. Craven uses gore as a window dressing to make Casey Becker's death more dramatic, make the killer as ruthless and a legitimate threat. And it uses it as a vehicle to move the story forward as the story of these murders sweep the town. Like, this is where it all begins, and it sets the tone for the movie. Same thing, line, "You never told me your name. Why do you need to know my name? Because I want to know who I'm looking at." To me, it taps into the feeling or uneasiness you sometimes get being home alone. Like, you're in like one quarter of your house, and you hear something from the other, and you're like, what the fuck was that? Like, is someone there? And it's just like, this confirms, like, yes, someone is there, and you should be very afraid that they are. My stinker is really, you're going to kill the Fonz, and you needed him.
No!
Right? Like, you needed him to die so you could stick his lifeless corpse on a flagpole so that the extras at a party have a cue to leave so we can start the third act. Am I understanding this correctly? You put Arthur Fonzarelli's lifeless corpse on a flagpole and you don't even show it. Shame.
Shame. I know your name.
Bearclaw.
So, my favorite hook, because of how impossible it is, and how wacky it is Rose McGowan going up in the garage door scene with the pet door, and like, there's not a garage door opener around that could have that kind of maybe like an industrial cargo garage door.
How many horsepower do you think that thing had?
Yeah, exactly. Like, no small engine motor is going to tear somebody apart like that. So I just thought that was funny because, you know, it's just one of those things that it was just a good moment in the movie. It shows the movie doesn't take itself too seriously. Where this movie shines is in it's not taking itself too seriously. And then my line, I had Stu when he was talking to Sidney on the phone. "Did you really call the police?" And Sidney Prescott, "You bet your sorry ass I did." And he's starting to cry.
My mom and dad are gonna be so
mad at me. I just like that line. I thought it was a good one. Just goes to show you how disconnected Stu is from the reality of the situation. And my stinker is the fish lens in this movie was just overused. I mean, did you shoot this thing with like a GoPro? Like, my note here was this movie shot by an omniscient goldfish? Like, so much fisheye lens in this, and it's just like, it didn't, I don't know. This was not the most beautifully shot movie I've ever seen, but for all of its other strengths, that would be kind of one of its weaknesses in my opinion. But that's what I got. Logan, what do you have?
So for Hook, I have Stu's death because it's cool as hell. I mean, it might not be his death, but who knows?
Ooh.
Might have to leave that up for the next installment. But line, I have.
I'm feeling woozy here.
I love it. I have to repeat it every time I hear it because it's just so good. I feel a little woozy here. For my stinker, I have, and this might sound a little controversial, but continue. Let's just ride it out here. Is I don't like the scene where they're revealing their Ghostface, because once Gail gets involved and then like they're like, oh wait, where is she? Where is Sidney? It's like, okay, so she called the police, she got her dad to safety, she put on the Ghostface mask, she stole the phone, and she did all that within like 2 minutes. There's a little bit of a disconnect. There's a little bit of a disconnect. And I don't even think it was 2 minutes. I think it was like a minute, maybe, at tops. And I'm just like, how did you do that without them noticing? But, you know, whatever. That's my only stinker because of how good this movie is. I think that's just like the only thing.
Do we have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, Dewey as a character. He's an honorable man. I like Dewey as a character.
Dewey's a stinker?
No, he's just an honorable mention. Just Dewey.
An honorable mention, a man of honor. A man of
I have a line. It's when Sidney is like at the end and she goes, "You sick fucks, you've seen one too many movies." And Billy says, "Now, Sid, don't you blame the movies."
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Just like how he delivered the line. I also like when he said,
"We all go a little mad that sometimes.
Oh, but the face reveal and then doing that, oh, it was so well done. I don't even think it's just the line. I think it's just like the face. You can just see the evil.
Yeah, you're right. It's like that switch flips a little bit.
Because it's like the fear and then it goes like slowly into like the, we all go a little mad sometimes. Like just so, man. Oh. Skeet Ulrich, another honorable mention. Just awesome. I love the dude.
I actually, for a stinker, I actually think it's because it's over the top is when Randy's at the video store and Stu and Billy are in there and Randy's getting like super loud.
His body will come popping up in the last reel somewhere. Eyes gouged out, fingers cut off, teeth knocked out.
And angry.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny. And like, and he actually, he predicts that, that the dad would be the red herring and come back at the end.
I love that.
And Billy was the killer. All right. I think we're on to our final rating.
They're gonna rate the movie. What will they rate the movie? The killer is great, the victim sucks, the survivor is in between. What was that?
We're gonna rate the movie.
I love Nathan's song.
Our final rating system is killer. It was awesome. It's our highest rating. We would definitely recommend, and it has definite rewatchability. Survivor's our middle tier. It was pretty good. We would maybe recommend this and has some rewatchability. And victim is we were all the victims. It's the lowest rating. It has no rewatchability, and we would not recommend. For me, Scream is a 5-star killer, man, all day. I mean, this is an iconic movie. I do think it did save horror. And like Logan pointed out, it's still going. I mean, Ghostface is everywhere. He's iconic. The phone calls are iconic. The lines of this movie are iconic. I mean, and it's a fun watch, man. It's just a fun, you know, like you said, Bearclaw popcorn, just watching a horror movie. All right, Dan, how about you?
I'm going to keep mine brief because I feel like we're all going to be echoing the same sentiments. I'm giving this a killer. It's a classic movie, instant classic the moment I saw it. It's got great character work. Skeet Ulrich's heel turn at the end of the movie is awesome. Matthew Lillard is just unhinged in every scene. That it would be too obvious for him to be the killer, right? And then you got Courteney Cox and David Arquette's acting chemistry. And I said this earlier, I think Sidney Prescott is the closest thing anyone's come to capturing the Laurie Strode character without trying to copy it. They have similar qualities, but with different circumstances. This is the horror icon of the 90s, I without a doubt. And yeah, it's a killer movie. I highly recommend watching it. It's got great rewatchability. Can't say enough good things about it. Bearclaw.
You know me, all killer, no filler for this one. For me, loved it. Impossible to separate the nostalgia points for it, but I also think it stands on its own, and for all the reasons we mentioned. So yeah, I just think it's a great movie. Not only would I recommend it, I have recommended it, and I've watched it multiple times, and it's a fantastic movie.
All right, Logan, finish us up.
Like the meme says, absolute cinema. It is a classic killer for me. I mean, it is just the epitome of horror. It is got atmosphere, great character development. It is awesome with its references to other horror movies in the past. It has a great cast of characters that are completely separate from each other. Like they all have very different qualities that make each other so great. And what I think really signals a great new horror movie is always a new iconic killer, and that's what this movie brings out in Ghostface. Ghostface is the icon of horror. Besides Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, he is in there. He is in the lineup. He is the Backstreet Boys of horror. There's an old video of all the horror villains singing My Way, and it's the greatest thing. I think it's just a great movie. It's so much fun. I recommend it to literally everyone, just like Bearclaw. I love it so much.
Are we gonna have another total killer? Let's see what Nathan, our producer, says as he gives us his final rating. And he says, Scream is innovative, campy, and often terrifying. It has some of the most iconic moments and lines the genre has to offer. The meta commentary isn't just entertaining and funny, it's often used as a tool to turn the tables on the audience in a genius manner. Killer. P.S. Justice for Tatum. Another total killer. Woo!
Went from a total stinker to a total killer.
Complete turnaround.
We also asked you, our audience, what your thoughts were on Scream. So let's check our Instagram, and that's at mouths.of.madness. James Shannon Morant, best horror movie of the 90s. Thank you, Wes Craven.
There's something that came up on Instagram, and I didn't have a chance to respond to it, but it said, write a horror movie in 6 words or less. And I was able to do it, and I thought about it. No more horror, only rom-coms.
Let's see here. K Lampy 5678. This is a definite killer. I went to see it with a friend and didn't know much about it beforehand, and that opening scene had us both screaming and hugging each other, but also laughing so much at how scared we were. This is one of my favorite movies to rewatch. I never tire of it, and the opening scene still holds up as one of the most terrifying. CWDATB Podcast. Love Scream. The fact that Matthew Lillard isn't on the poster is insane. I know, he should be recognized. Dissect That Film. This is a formative horror movie. It's a film that changed the game when it came to slashers. It has by far the greatest opening scene ever put on film. I love it. Dark_Abyss 89. He ranks high with other icons. I don't know if it saves slashers, but it was definitely a foothold for more viewers for the genre, in my opinion. Melanie_St. George. Killer. This is probably my favorite and most watched. I was 14 and me and some friends rented it from a local video store. I will never forget seeing this movie for the first time. The opening is my favorite opening to a horror movie. Hannah Blackmon. I absolutely love this movie. Funny, though, that I actually saw Scary Movie before I had seen Scream. However, once I saw Scream, it made it that much funnier. And Ghostface is truly iconic. Even though sometimes the reveals aren't always mind-blowing, it still brings some excitement with each movie and keeps you guessing till the end. I gotta ask you guys, is seeing Scary Movie, does it ruin Scream at all for anybody?
Makes it
I
better.
haven't seen it. I've only seen like bits of it. I know 90% of the jokes just from, YouTube and everything like that and moments. So I probably have seen it, but in 5-minute bits. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would. It certainly doesn't have the psychotic nature of Scream.
We gotta do it for an episode.
How about you, Dan?
Oh, no, not at all. I'm kind of in league with Bearclaw in that, I haven't really dove much into the Scary Movie franchise. I just think that it's pretty wild going back to the success of Scream that the Wayans brothers were able to just build an entire other franchise off the back of that one.
Right. Hey, you got to give them credit. K_Scanlon 653. One of my all-time favorite films by far. It wasn't the first horror film I ever watched, but it was close. That honor goes to Halloween H2O. As for whether or not Scream saved the genre, I don't think it did in the sense that the whole genre was dying. I do, however, believe it brought back the slasher subgenre from the brink. Wes Craven's New Nightmare was the first attempt at any meta horror, which I love and is my favorite nightmare film, but Scream perfected it and breathed new life into the slasher's subgenre. It's an all-time great film that will forever hold a place in horror fans' hearts. Also, Ghostface slots in just behind Michael Myers for me in terms of slasher icons. Horror savvy. Undeniably killer. Scream was a game changer when it was released. I see a lot of people saying it was their first horror movie, and I gotta say, it's such a better movie if you're already experienced in horror. When someone is new to this genre, I don't introduce them to Scream no matter how badly they want it. Gotta see a few classics first. Lindsay_not_Lohan. This was definitely one of the best horror movies I ever saw in middle school. I remember my whole family and I sitting around to watch it for the first time, and we were just going back and forth trying to figure out who the killer was, and it was kind of this game, and it was actually really fun. I feel like Ghostface really affected me back then. You know, cell phones weren't really a thing. You had pagers and only house phones, and it just felt so real because that could have actually happened and probably did happen in the 90s, you know. Killer slasher film, and Drew Barrymore opening scene is, in my opinion, the all-time greatest opening of a horror movie. Mayor_Bunny M. So I'm the one person out there who didn't get this movie. I watched it every week by week with friends online, and when Scream ended, I wasn't impressed. I enjoyed the sequel movies though, and I think the more it embraced the whole whodunit theme, the better they got. The first one, I spent most of the movie thinking, what is going on? But not in a good way, which is funny because we watched the movies because of the game Dead by Daylight, and Ghostface is largely a meme killer. People have told me it's a satire, parody, whatever, but for me it fell flat. Although I will say, it has my favorite scene. My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. Sips and Scream Pod. 100% killer. Reignited the classic slasher for sure. Did you know I watch movies? Oddly enough, born in 1996, Scream 3 ended up being my first real slasher film. Ghostface is a great icon of horror and might be the most versatile killers in the genre. The killer can be anyone, and you can often spot behavioral differences between the killer and how they move. Some are trappers, others are chasers, some just like to play with their food. Combine that with consistent struggle against movie cliches and subverting expectations, and you've got an unpredictable killer. Not a single bad one in the franchise, and I stand by it. James Shannon Morant. Horror movies were dead in the 90s mainly because people got tired of seeing the same thing. They wanted something new, and they got it with Scream. And finally, from John_Riccadelli_Jr. I like Scream. Yes, we all do.
Yeah.
You know, Scream joins Black Christmas, it joins Reanimator, and it joins The Cabin in the Woods as our only total killer rated movies between all of us. So that's really, really cool. We appreciate all your comments, and that does it for our review on Scream. But we'll be back soon for another episode, and we're going to be reviewing Texas Chainsaw Massacre for its 50th anniversary and our 1-year anniversary. Woo! So please continue to join us for Madtober. But until then, back to the padded room with you. The damn phone call again. Oh my God, this phone won't stop ringing. All right, we got to answer this one last time.
Finally. It's fine.
Put it on speaker.
All right. God, what do you want?
To see what your insides look like.
That's between me and the medical staff at the colonoscopy center.
Dude, this is not a 900 number, please.
Get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here.
Get him off the line. Boop.
Sorry, I got nothing.